Hey everyone, round two, back with Bryan. Hey Bryan.
Hello, how we doing?
Good, thank you. Thank you for coming again. We had a couple of technical difficulties last time with the end of the pod, so yeah, we have got a diversity topic to dig into as well. So shall we take it away?
Absolutely. Let's get stuck into it.
Awesome. Cool. So yeah, last time, if anyone's watched the former recording, we had an absolutely incredible discussion about leadership, belonging, blameless culture, and some awesome experiences Bryan had on that side of the coin as well. Now I want to look into the DEI and belonging topic. So yeah, keen to see what changes you've seen in regards to diversity, equity, belonging, and inclusion since you started working in tech over a decade ago.
Do you know, well, first and foremost, let's just get out of the way. I'm probably the worst person in the world to talk about diversity or equality, right? I'm very aware of that. So I would say, though, the word you mentioned there at the very end was belonging. And when I think about DEI, that's really what I'm aiming for in teams. If people feel that they are part of something, then I think that's really what we're trying to achieve. And that should cross all boundaries. Everyone should feel comfortable. And if we can achieve that, then it means people are going to be more open. They're going to be more creative in the way that they work because they feel safe about making mistakes. Um, and I think they're just going to do better work, right? I think in the first part we said, happy people, happy developers, write better code, hang around the business for longer, have a better contribution to the team in terms of helping others. Like it all builds part of the culture. So I think the key thing is belonging. In terms of changes, I'm glad to say that I think the IT world has become better at it, over the last decade. But we've got a long, long way to go, right? I think you just turn up to any IT tech conference and it still looks very much the same, although I think some of the behaviors are better now. That being said, I've got many friends that have had bad experiences, but hopefully there's some good experiences mixed in there too. Um, in terms of change, I think COVID, interestingly, has been something that perhaps taught us all a lesson around mental state. And I think that those that perhaps hadn't thought about their work as being a really big part of their personality or part of their kind of mental balance. I think COVID going to change that, and all of a sudden we were all talking about the importance of feeling good at work, and I think that helped broaden that conversation a little bit. So yeah, I think we're moving in the right direction, but there is definitely so much more to do, without doubt.
Okay, but very interesting. And I want to challenge one thing that you said there, just that you're not the best person to speak about diversity and inclusion, because I think that's absolutely not the case, right? You are absolutely an ally to folk who come from underrepresented backgrounds and want to work in tech. And when you speak about belonging, that is one of the utmost important
Mm.
things to create a healthy culture, right? And if you are hyper aware of ensuring that all people in your teams do feel that sense of belonging, then you are absolutely a change maker when it comes to like equitable cultures for folk in your teams and inclusive cultures, right? As well, just because you may be a typical person in terms of diversity working in tech doesn't mean that you're adding to the diversity of thought and being absolute ally as well. So just to make that comment to you.
You're very kind, thanks.
um, but no, you absolutely make some good points, and it's really interesting actually to think about what you mention about COVID and that mental well-being as well. Um, yeah, I guess speaking about initiatives, COVID people focusing more on feeling better in themselves. So have you what initiatives have you seen over the years that have been put in place to either like increase diversity in tech or increase that feeling of belonging within tech businesses?
So I always feel like a bit of a fraud on this, because I've got a really simplistic view of it, and that is that we learn by asking questions and being curious. And again, I think we mentioned this in the first part around, keeping a curiosity that is open and approaching everything with that willingness to learn. And that's for me. If I meet someone with a different background or a different makeup or just a different world experience, I'm really keen to hear what that looks like from their perspective. What are the challenges they've had? What are the benefits? What is their worldview versus mine? Like, it's the old adage of, if we look at like the number 6 or the number 9, like, it depends on whether, if it's written on the ground, we're standing on one side, it looks like one number; we're standing at the other side, it looks like the other. Or we're trying to describe an elephant, with a team who are walking around an elephant with blindfolds on. The person holding the tail is going to have a very different view of the animal versus the one looking at the tusks, right, or the trunk. So I think being open and honest and being transparent and being curious is definitely the way. So in terms of initiatives, first and foremost, I think, again, COVID helped us just maybe have more honest conversations about how we're doing. And that's been important on both sides. So I think on the male side, I've always been aware, especially during COVID, with male suicide is a massive, massive problem. And if you're managing, especially in IT, you are likely working with males that are in a really high risk for that. But likewise, we should be aware that if we are working with people that are part of smaller groups that are not well represented, well, we should be asking them questions about what we can do to make them feel like they can belong. And that's not always obvious as well, which is really interesting. So I've got a friend of mine who is in a wheelchair, and a really interesting chat with him about interactions with other people. And he said that when people kneel down to chat to him, he knows they're trying to do the right thing because they want to have an eye-to-eye conversation. But at the same time, for him, he doesn't like that because he feels that, it's kind of like an adult bending down to speak to a child. He's like, if you are
Ooh.
chatting with someone who's 6 foot something and the other person is 5 foot something, the other one doesn't kneel down. They just accept that they're different heights. So I think having that conversation is really important rather than making assumptions. So in terms of initiatives, I just try and talk to people. Other things, though, that I've seen really work well is where we are looking at groups that have got a lot to offer, but are perhaps struggling to get into a certain career. For my own part, I think that return to work mums are a hugely underrepresented area in IT. Remembering these are often women that have gone through university, they've studied computer science or engineering, they've usually had some IT roles, they've taken some time out of work to have children, which is obviously very difficult for the father to do. So, they've had to take this time out, and getting back in can be difficult because we need to be more flexible in terms of working hours. We need to be, especially in the early days, there's got a lot of things going on if you've just started a new family, but they've so much to add. I've seen my wife manage me and our 3 children, and trust me, there's no one else that I can think better to run a team than her. And I think that so many other women must be in the same position where they're just struggling to get back in because either the roles are full time, or they don't think there's going to be enough flexibility, or sometimes as well, coming back to this idea of belonging, they're just worried about what that return to work journey is going to look like. So I think as managers and leaders, I think our goal, as always, is to build a team that is a tapestry of different experiences. So if you look around your team and they all kind of look the same and they all agree with the same ideas, it's probably a bad sign. Like I've always said, I would never ever want a team full of me. I can't imagine anything worse. I would much rather have conversations with people that are different with different experiences. So sorry, that's a really long-winded answer, and it's partly I think because I've got a cold, as you can probably guess, so my brain's a little fuzzy. But I think the key thing is it's all about listening when we're a leader, and there's lots of initiatives that we can look at. The key thing is to really work out what's available to you and how you can take advantage of it.
You make some really good points, and actually, what your friend mentioned about being in a wheelchair, you're right. It's so easy to assume, like, okay, this is a better thing to do, like eye to eye, but actually, without asking, you don't know if that is the best thing to do as well. And yeah, I think there's a lot of fear in society about like doing the wrong thing or saying the wrong thing, when actually like 99% of people are just open to people asking the question. And that's a big theme we see in DE&I and belonging in general, as well, and how to start that conversation. So it's a very interesting example as well. And what you say about like mums coming back into work. I read a book, it's called My Uterus is a Feature, Not a Bug. And it just speaks about women who are returning to the workplace and just like how absolutely fantastic their hard skills are in terms of like time management, being able to manage, like multitasking really, manage tons of different things, being able to get people on track, just like super diligent, most amazing people you'd want on their teams. And I think especially in tech, you might overlook women like that. She's like, oh, you've not been up to date with the latest tech for a couple of years, when actually looking at these folk moving into like management roles as well could add so much value into a business. It's unbelievable as well. And yeah, I think something I notice on the recruitment side of things, you'll speak to a business, they're like, oh yeah, we do offer flexible working, like we can do 3 or 4 day weeks. I'm like, where is it on your job advertisement? Why is that not screaming out? Like, you're missing a huge trick here. It's crazy.
Yeah, I look. Job adverts are something that, well, we're both on different sides of that fence, but I think we're both equally annoyed at them. Whether that is the list of all the technical requirements they absolutely must have, yet they'll be redundant. Those skills will be redundant in 2 years flat. Um,
Mhm.
and whether it's the type of person, do you actually want someone that has the skills, or do you want someone that is able to learn skills? And for me, I've always
Mm.
been growth based in the way I look at people. I'm always looking at the job they're going to do next, not the job I'm recruiting them for. Um, and yeah, again, the skills that someone can bring when they have had a different life experience from you is massive. And I think many people overlook how important that is. Like, whether it's which color we make the button or how we go about solving this technical problem, we don't think that diversity has an impact, but it absolutely does. It's just all of your experiences are different from theirs, so they're just going to have a different way of approaching it. So it's so important. Other areas I've seen as well. So some of the initiatives I've seen have been really successful. Has been ex-military too. Again, these are usually men and women that have been out of commercial work for a while. They have learned a whole bunch of other skills, but they are usually then retraining to come back into a new career. Um, but again, in terms of, if you think about the skills they require, communication, um, focus, problem solving, all of the things that we generally look for, the things that are difficult to teach, they have in abundance. And the things that are really easy to teach, like Java or Kubernetes or Linux, like, these are things that people can learn. Whereas the life experience
Mm.
part, the keys in the experience, right? There's no way of quickly putting that into someone. You need to have lived it. So yeah, I think that, look, there's lots out there, and there's lots of companies that can make that really easy too. So I won't mention any names, but for any leaders out there that are looking at the how we can structure that, you can have them whereby a company will do initial screening for these people, including initial training. You then effectively get them as a contractor for a period of time. So you've kind of got to try before you buy, which is an awful phrase, but it's that kind of idea. And then at the end of that period, if you're happy that this person's someone you want to employ, you effectively then move them over to a full-time contract, and everyone is happy. But it's a really nice way, I think, particularly for businesses that are perhaps struggling for headcount in terms of OPEX, but they have CAPEX for projects. It's a really nice way of being able to introduce people into the business. So yeah, it's worth looking around, especially if you're struggling to attract these people as part of your recruitment process.
Yeah, that's some really good insight. And if anyone wants some specific names, please reach out to Bryan. We will link his LinkedIn profile to the bottom of this, as well. But yeah, I'm just laughing about what you say about job description full of different tools and technologies that you must have, and then you speak to someone and it's only 3 of them that are absolute non-negotiables. You just think, why are all these things written on there? Why is this not clear? Like, job ads are meant to attract people, not put arbitrary tools and technologies that you might come into contact with once a month as a must have. It doesn't make sense, but complete other topic. Could run for hours. Cool, love that. Final question really is going to be, if we're thinking about like new managers or young managers, really want to make sure that their teams are happy, want to have a like diverse team, right? But mostly want to have a culture of like inclusivity and foster a culture of belonging. What advice would you give to these folk moving into management?
So, first and foremost, this comes back to this idea that your team has to be a tapestry of different people. Like that is mandatory. If you don't have that in your team, you're not going to be a high performing team. I think also that will help you build the type of culture that you already have in your head that you want to build. And I think this is the thing about culture. Like, I think we see a lot of businesses or managers try to force culture into happening by having sometimes these large initiatives. And this is why I think that although they've got their place, it really comes down to individual managers believing in that there has to be diversity of thought and there has to be this culture of belonging. That's the two things that you're trying to do. And as a leader, there's only really one way you can do that, and that is by being curious, asking questions, and being open minded. Understanding that as a leader, your job is not to have all the answers. Your job is to hire smart people to help you get to the right answer. It's that simple. And I think sometimes we overthink that too much. For leaders that are looking to diversify their team or looking to attract different groups, the key thing is you might need to put some effort in. I know that sounds terrible, but it's not just going to be a case that you put a job advert out there and you're automatically going to attract a diverse group of people. Remembering, of course, that when you write your job advert, you are already including a whole bunch of biases in there. And the way there's lots of research on the ways that different groups, or even between men and women, and that the way we approach job adverts, men unsurprisingly tend to be overconfident of their abilities, and women, especially return to work mums, they tend to be a lot more conservative in the way that they approach it. So if they don't have the skills, they just won't apply. So you need to be really careful about how you write it. Also, the wording can be really important. Like for me, when I'm reading a job advert or when I'm writing one, I'm always thinking of it as a marketing exercise, because I don't think that I'm really trying to just throw a net out there. I'm trying to sell this role and sell the company. So a large part is, how does the team work? Is this going to be the right cultural fit? Because for me, I'm a huge believer in not hiring the best of the best unless they also have communication skills. Because if you're going to be someone that hoards knowledge and doesn't want to share, you're not going to be a great influence on that team. So, again, I'm rambling all over the place today, so excuse me. But key thing for leaders is communicate, ask questions, be curious, and put the effort in to attract the types of people that you want to try and get. So, surprise, surprise, if you want to try and get more women on your team, include other women in the hiring process and writing the job interview. Include them in reviewing interviews, reviewing CVs and interview process. It's again, this is not rocket science. This is just if you want a more inclusive, diverse team, be more inclusive and diverse in how you go about hiring and advertising.
You say it's not rocket science, right? But there are a lot of folk who might just be on the beginning of their journey and might not know what to do. So that is fabulous advice. And then one of my partners, they wrote that they were looking for a veteran on their job advertisement, and I was like, okay, veteran. Like, I'm a woman, I would never consider myself a veteran. Like, that's a very male driven word, and there are some fabulous free resources out there. Textio or text.io is a gender decoder where you can put your job advertisement to you, and it can tell you if there's any more feminine or masculine weighted phrases within your job or anything you write as well, which is really helpful as well. But like, yeah, what you say about culture is so important. I think a lot of people miss the aim of a job ad. They kind of write it as a list of this is the person that we're looking for, but actually the aim of a job ad is to attract the right people into your business. And if that's not attractive, they've got plenty of other choices out there where they can apply as well. And another thing I always think about is, especially if you're looking for underrepresented folk, the amount of them actually in tech is so little. If you are just relying on a job advertisement, you're probably unlikely to have a lot of success, because there will be tons of folk directly headhunting them, because majority of businesses want to have an inclusive and a diverse team as well. So yeah, but best steps I would say is making sure that you can get your culture and as much as that culture as possible out there on written form. I'd absolutely agree with that.
Just very quickly, I think we've just managed to catch bias in real time. So a minute ago there, I said all of this is not rocket science. This is, and generally implying this is easy. It's not. It only becomes easy once someone explains it to you. Much like I had someone explain the same things you're talking about, like the words in CVs make a difference. And it needed a woman to explain it to me because they've got a different point of view. So yes, it's obvious once someone points it out. So when I say anything that's easy or not rocket science, it absolutely is. But it it's not difficult to do once you know it's there. But that's the trick with biases, right? Is that and this is perhaps why you need a team that is so diverse, because you're all going to have your own independent biases, your own blind spots, and unless you've got a really good set of people, you're going to miss the same things time and time again. So yeah, that was interesting that, here I am with, effectively making it difficult for new leaders, which you point out. So yes, it's not easy. It turns out it's really hard.
I love how that just happened in real life, and I didn't even clock as well. Again, it's just an open
Yeah.
conversation, right? So yeah, point proven. And I would also say it probably is difficult to begin that journey for folk who might be in a smaller business or a startup, and you are extremely homogeneous in who you're working with at the moment as well. I think the best piece of advice I would give is just own it and be honest about that. But I don't know if you'd have any other advice to people in a small business beginning their journey.
No, well, I was going to say, I think that again we caught it in real time there, which is I recognised that I had a bias there that I didn't immediately clock, and so my immediate thing is to effectively say, oh, I've got a bias there, and then articulate it, because that's about being honest. It's not about being embarrassed that I had a bias. Go, oh well, I might have said the wrong thing there. No, it's going, oh no, wait, let's have a bit of a chat about that. And this is the core of it all. Be curious enough to want to find out more. Be open and honest to share what you think currently, and then listen really hard when someone has an opposing opinion or they tell you something new. And then have a conversation about it. And I think if you were a startup and you were trying to be more diverse, because you want to make sure you've not got those blind spots. As you say, I think reaching out in the community and asking for help is a really great place to start. Um, and that's missed a lot. I think if you talk about why you want to have a diverse team, there's almost immediate assumption it's because you're trying to hit some kind of quota or stat. Whereas I think that if you were to go out to perhaps a community group or Slack channels or newsletter or something and say, look, we are this just now. We want to do this because of these reasons. We need help in attracting people. Like that working in the open thing, you're already just by the fact of you're asking for help, you're already demonstrating you're the type of company that is going to be diverse, that is going to want people that belong, etc. So yeah, I think that it's not being scared. It's about kind of tackling it head on, but understanding that you come with you come with a lot of personal baggage that you need to try and get over and get help with.
Yeah, it's all about openness. I think is the main takeaway that I'm hearing about that openness, listening, not being ashamed
Mm.
if you don't know the answers or the answers you thought were correct might not be 100% set in stone, right? It's just openness, and that is all how we are going to work and live in a much more happy society and get along as well. But no, Bryan, it's been an absolute pleasure. So thank you so much for coming on again and refilming, because it's very important that we got that last bit out, as it's just shown from the conversation that we had as well. If anyone has any questions for Bryan, feel free to drop him a line on LinkedIn. And Bryan, can you share your website with us or anywhere else where folk can find you?
Yeah, so absolutely. So I write quite a lot on LinkedIn. I run a newsletter, etc. You can get me on all my socials are at bryanross.me. So that's Bryan, Bryan, ross.me. And as you'll see, links there. And if you're interested in this type of material and where I explain a lot around the human side of IT, I suppose, whether that's change management or incident management or how to build high performing teams, how to market platforms. Again, it's bringing the human element back into all this again. You can join my newsletter there as well.
Amazing. Absolute superstar. Thank
Thank you
you.
so
And
much.
thank you everyone for tuning in. Bye.